What if the reason you haven't achieved your biggest goal isn't because you're not talented enough, smart enough, or lucky enough, but simply because you stopped too soon? Think about that for a moment. How many times have you started something with excitement? Maybe it was a new business, a fitness goal, a YouTube channel, a new skill, a financial goal, or a dream you've carried for years. At the beginning, everything feels possible. You're motivated. You make plans. You imagine the future. But then reality arrives. The first video doesn't get views. The business doesn't make money. Someone rejects your idea. Your friends don't support you. You fail an exam. You lose money. Progress becomes painfully slow. And suddenly, that exciting dream doesn't feel exciting anymore. You start asking yourself, maybe this isn't for me. But what if that's exactly the moment when your journey is being decided? In Chapter 9 of Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill explores one of the most powerful qualities behind achievement: persistence. His message is simple but incredibly powerful. Many people don't fail because they are incapable of succeeding. They fail because they don't continue long enough to succeed. Desire is only the beginning. Almost everyone wants something. Someone wants financial freedom. Someone wants to become successful on YouTube. Someone wants to build a company. Someone wants to become healthier. Someone wants to become financially independent. But wanting something and continuing to pursue it are two completely different things. You can desire success intensely for a few days. But can you continue when nobody believes in you? Can you continue when the results are invisible? Can you continue after your 10th failure? Can you continue after your 100th rejection? That's where persistence begins. Hill's central idea is that desire gives you the destination, but persistence keeps you moving toward it. Imagine two people starting the same journey. The first person is extremely talented but gives up whenever something becomes difficult. The second person is average but continues learning, improving, and trying again. At the beginning, the first person may look far more impressive. But over time, the second person can overtake them. Why? Because persistence allows effort to accumulate. One attempt becomes 10. 10 become 100. 100 become experience. Experience becomes skill. And skill eventually produces results. One of the most important ideas in this chapter is the difference between temporary defeat and permanent failure. These two things can look almost identical. You start a business and it fails. It feels like failure. You upload videos and nobody watches them. It feels like failure. You apply for a job and get rejected. It feels like failure. But these events don't have to become the end of the story. A failed business can teach you what customers don't want. A video with no views can teach you something about titles, thumbnails, storytelling, or your audience. A rejected job application can teach you what employers are looking for. The event itself may be disappointing, but the meaning you give that event determines what happens next. A temporary defeat says, this attempt didn't work. Giving up says, nothing will ever work. Those are completely different conclusions. A persistent person doesn't necessarily experience fewer failures. They simply refuse to allow failure to become the final chapter. Here's a question worth asking: how close are you to success when you decide to quit? You may never know. That's the frightening part. Imagine someone digging for gold. They dig for weeks, but nothing happens. They become exhausted and eventually stop. Someone else takes over the same piece of land, digs a little deeper, and suddenly finds what the first person was looking for. The difference wasn't necessarily intelligence. It wasn't necessarily talent. It was persistence. This happens in real life all the time. People quit businesses before they understand their customers. They quit learning a skill before reaching competence. They quit exercising before seeing significant physical changes. They quit creating content before understanding their audience. They quit pursuing opportunities because the first few attempts didn't work. The problem is that progress is often invisible before it becomes obvious. A seed spends time underground before you see anything above the surface. That doesn't mean nothing is happening. The same can be true of your efforts. You may not see results today, but that doesn't automatically mean your effort is worthless. Another important lesson is that persistence isn't something only a few lucky people are born with. It can be developed. Think about persistence like a muscle. You don't build a muscle by lifting a huge weight once. You build it through repeated effort. The same principle applies mentally. Every time you continue after disappointment, you strengthen your ability to continue. Every time you finish something you wanted to abandon, you strengthen discipline. Every time you keep working when motivation is low, you become more resilient. Eventually, persistence becomes part of your character. This is important because motivation is unreliable. Motivation feels amazing when you're excited, but motivation disappears. There will be mornings when you don't feel like working. There will be days when your results are disappointing. There will be moments when your original excitement is completely gone. If your success depends entirely on motivation, you will eventually stop. But if your success depends on commitment, you can continue. A major foundation of persistence is having a definite goal. It's difficult to persist towards something you can't clearly define. Compare these two goals: I want to become successful, and I want to build a business that generates a specific amount of income within a specific period. The second goal gives your mind something concrete to pursue. A definite goal creates direction. Without direction, you can work extremely hard and still feel lost. You might constantly change strategies. You might jump from one opportunity to another. You might chase every new trend. Eventually, you become exhausted. Persistence requires something worth persisting toward. So ask yourself, what exactly am I trying to accomplish? Not what sounds impressive. Not what other people expect. What do you actually want? Make it specific. Write it down. Remind yourself why it matters. Because when the difficult days arrive, your reason becomes your fuel. Another important element is belief in yourself. If you secretly believe that success is impossible for you, every setback will confirm that belief. One rejection becomes, I'm not good enough. One failed project becomes, I'll never succeed. One bad month becomes, this isn't going to work. But someone with stronger belief interprets the same event differently. They might say, this strategy didn't work. Notice the difference. I failed attacks your identity. This attempt failed gives you something you can improve. You are not the same thing as your results. A bad result is information. A failed attempt is information. Criticism can be information. Rejection can be information. Persistence becomes easier when you stop treating every setback as a judgment of your worth. Another enemy of persistence is indecision. Imagine trying to walk toward 5 different destinations at the same time. You won't move effectively toward any of them. The same happens when someone constantly changes their goal. One month they want to start a business. The next month they want to become an influencer. Then they want to learn trading. Then they want to start a different career. Then they discover another opportunity and abandon everything again. There is nothing wrong with changing direction when circumstances change. But constantly changing direction because of temporary emotions can destroy momentum. Persistence requires commitment. You need to be able to say, this is what I'm pursuing, and I'm going to give it a serious effort before deciding whether it works. That doesn't mean being blindly stubborn. It means giving your decisions enough time to produce meaningful evidence. Another major reason people quit is other people's opinions. You start something. Someone laughs. Someone says it won't work. Someone tells you that you're wasting your time. Someone compares you to a more successful person. Suddenly, you question everything. But people who aren't pursuing your goal don't necessarily understand your journey. They may judge your early results without seeing your long-term vision. They may focus on what you failed to accomplish instead of what you're learning. If you allow every opinion to change your direction, you'll never develop consistency. This doesn't mean you should ignore all criticism. Useful criticism can help you improve. But there is a difference between constructive feedback and discouragement disguised as advice. Take useful information. Learn from it. Discard unnecessary negativity. Then keep moving. Your environment also matters. Persistence becomes easier when you're surrounded by people who encourage growth. Your environment influences your thinking. If everyone around you constantly talks about why things are impossible, you may eventually start thinking the same way. But if you're surrounded by people who are learning, building, experimenting, and improving, their mindset can influence you in a positive direction. You don't necessarily need hundreds of successful friends. Even one supportive person can make a difference. A mentor, a friend, a community, a teacher, or a group of people pursuing similar goals can help you stay focused. The important thing is to avoid building an environment where giving up is considered normal. Persistence is also built through small daily decisions. You decide to work for 30 minutes even though you don't feel motivated. You finish the project you wanted to abandon. You publish another video after the previous one performed badly. You study another chapter after failing a test. You practice another hour after making mistakes. These actions may seem small, but they are training your mind. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build self-trust. Eventually, you begin to believe, when I say I'm going to do something, I follow through. That identity can change everything. Motivation is emotional. Persistence is behavioral. You can feel motivated today and completely unmotivated tomorrow. That's normal. Successful people aren't motivated every single day. They have bad days too. The difference is that they don't require perfect emotions before taking action. You can act without feeling motivated. You don't have to feel inspired to work. You don't have to feel confident to begin. You don't have to feel excited to continue. Sometimes you simply need to do the next small thing. Write the next paragraph. Make the next call. Record the next video. Study the next page. Take the next step. Persistence often looks boring. It isn't always dramatic. Sometimes persistence is simply showing up again. There is also tremendous power in repetition. Imagine you're trying to learn a language. One day of practice won't make you fluent. But one day repeated hundreds of times can completely transform your ability. The same principle applies to almost everything. One workout doesn't transform your body. One book doesn't transform your mind. One video doesn't build a channel. One sales call doesn't build a business. One investment doesn't create financial independence. One attempt rarely changes your life. But repeated attempts can. That's why persistence creates a compounding effect. You don't just gain results. You gain experience. You learn what works. You learn what doesn't. You become faster. You become more confident. You become better at recognizing opportunities. Eventually, the person you become through repeated effort is capable of achieving things the old version of you couldn't. However, persistence does not mean doing the exact same wrong thing forever. If something isn't working, learn. Adjust. Improve. Change your strategy when necessary. But don't automatically abandon the goal. Imagine a creator whose videos aren't getting views. A person without persistence might quit YouTube. A person with persistence might ask, is the topic wrong? Is the title weak? Is the thumbnail unclear? Is the opening too slow? Am I targeting the right audience? They don't necessarily abandon the goal. They improve the method. That's intelligent persistence. Keep the mission. Improve the method. Hill also points toward the forces that can weaken persistence. Fear, lack of a definite purpose, indecision, negative influence, and poor organization. Fear of criticism can stop you before you begin. Fear of failure can make you quit after your first setback. Fear of losing money can prevent you from taking calculated risks. Fear of embarrassment can keep you from putting your work in front of the world. But fear becomes less powerful when you have a strong purpose. If you don't know why you're doing something, it's easy to stop. But when your reason is powerful enough, difficulties become easier to tolerate. This is why you need to know not only what you want, but why you want it. Why do you want financial freedom? Why do you want to build a business? Why do you want to become successful? Why does your goal matter to you? Your why becomes especially important when the excitement disappears. Success is rarely a straight line. From the outside, successful people often appear to have achieved something suddenly. But behind that overnight success, there may be years of attempts nobody saw. Years of learning. Years of rejection. Years of mistakes. Years of uncertainty. Years when the results were almost invisible. The world usually sees the breakthrough. It doesn't always see the persistence that created it. That's why comparing your beginning to someone else's finished result can be dangerous. You may be judging yourself during the struggle while looking at someone else during their victory. You don't know how many times they failed before succeeding. So how can you apply the lesson of persistence to your own life? Start by choosing one goal. Ask yourself, what exactly do I want? Make it specific. Then ask, why do I want it? Your reason needs to be strong enough to survive difficult days. Next, ask yourself, what is currently stopping me? Is it fear? Lack of knowledge? Lack of discipline? Lack of resources? A bad strategy? Negative people? Identify the actual obstacle. Then ask the most important question. What can I do today? Not someday. Not next month. Today. Take one small action. Because persistence isn't about controlling the future. It's about controlling what you do next. The deepest lesson of Chapter 9 is this. Your ability to continue may be more important than your ability to begin. Starting is exciting. Continuing is difficult. Anyone can make a plan. Persistence means continuing after the plan doesn't go perfectly. Anyone can dream. Persistence means working when the dream feels far away. Anyone can feel motivated. Persistence means acting when motivation disappears. And anyone can celebrate success. Persistence means surviving the period before success arrives. So the next time something doesn't work, don't immediately ask, should I quit? Ask, what can I learn from this? Then ask, what should I change? And finally, what's the next step? That shift in thinking can completely change your relationship with failure. Maybe you're closer than you think. Maybe the opportunity you want hasn't appeared yet. Maybe your skills aren't developed enough yet. Maybe your strategy needs improvement. Maybe you still have lessons to learn. But don't let a temporary setback convince you that the entire journey is over. If the goal still matters to you, keep working. Adjust when necessary. Learn from failure. Ignore unnecessary negativity. Build discipline. Strengthen your belief. And most importantly, keep going. Because sometimes the difference between the person who succeeds and the person who gives up isn't talent. It isn't intelligence. It isn't luck. It's simply this. One person continued a little longer. So here's the question I want you to leave with. What would happen if you refused to quit on your goal for the next 12 months? Think about it. Your life may not change because of one giant decision. It may change because of thousands of small decisions to keep going. That's the power of persistence. If this chapter gave you a new perspective, subscribe for more lessons from Think and Grow Rich and other timeless books on success, mindset, and personal growth. And remember, temporary defeat is not permanent failure, unless you decide to make it permanent.